Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Make sure to leave a like on this video down below and subscribe. My name is Alvin. I lean right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Hey guys, so in this video, Alvin and I are going to be reviewing the 2024 presidential election based on the polls. So now in particular, we're going to be looking at the maps of three pollsters who've polled every swing state, the New York Times Siena College poll, the Beacon Research Shaw and Co. Fox News poll, and Emerson College.
Yeah, so these are the three big pollsters that have done polls in practically every swing state. Um, and you also have Trafalgar who did it, but they are quite right leaning. Now, we might do a future video with just Trafalgar as we have done in the past. Trafalgar is generally pretty accurate in years where the polling miss is pretty bad to the left, while these pollsters are usually pretty accurate when the polls are accurate and when those right-leaning pollsters are off to the right. And so it's probably gonna be something in between the two, but we're gonna first look at all the mainstream pollsters, which is New York Times, Fox, and Emerson. And we're gonna start off with Emerson. Emerson had the most national leaning Democrat leaning national top line number in September. They have Harris up 2 points, 49 to 47, which is really good for Harris. Really a big improvement from 45, although a little down from her honeymoon period in August. It's interesting because Emerson here doesn't have Harris at a great outlook for the Electoral College, however. It actually has Trump only 4 electoral votes from securing the presidency and has Harris clinging on to very small margins in Nevada and Georgia. And we see here that Trump and Harris really are just a Pennsylvania away from the presidency, which we have talked about a lot, how Pennsylvania is the most important swing state in the entire cycle. 19 electoral votes. Both sides really need to win Pennsylvania to win the White House, and this map sort of depicts it. I would say it's generally okay, but I'm not
Oh,
so
also,
bullish
wait,
on.
Alvin,
Oh,
you
go on.
should you
Yeah, go
should
on.
flick Minnesota blue here. That's a slight error there. No, like on the map.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
yeah, that makes sense. You can talk though.
yeah. So, I mean, looking at this map, it's a pretty. I just want to note like a small design change we made here. Is in this map, we made the tilt state so the lightest shade. We characterize that in cases where the polls say one candidate's up by only a single point. So, for example, in Georgia, the Emerson poll puts Harris up a point. But yeah, so we see like lots of close states: Nevada, Wisconsin, Georgia, North Carolina, of course, Pennsylvania, like extremely close. Something very notable about this poll is that like I mean Florida and Texas are both lighter shades of red here because both are under 5. Yeah, so I think that it's interesting. I think the poll actually had te Trump only have 3 in Texas, which is pretty close. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that'll actually happen, but like, I mean, it's possible considering the shifts in the state. But yeah, so like, I mean, this poll at least suggests that, maybe some of the redder states could potentially come onto the board. But yeah, I mean, I think the main takeaway is that Pennsylvania is a really key state.
Yeah, not only that, but the other key point I would take away is how small these margins are in basically every swing state here, except for weirdly enough, Arizona. Michigan, I would expect to be more solidly in Harris's column, but not Arizona in Trump's column. And especially in a poll that has Texas and Florida closer than
Then
what you might
Arizona, yeah.
expect. Yeah, you would expect
In their
that,
poll, yeah.
yeah, especially these Hispanic shifts and the southern attitude towards the border would, this if they're this bad against Trump, you would expect Arizona to be worse for Trump. So it's interesting. You also have just basically 4 of these very important swing states on a knife's edge, really. Nevada and Georgia, which, are probably seen, as more Democrat than North Carolina, but they're all really on a knife's edge here. That's actually a theme to note throughout. This video is, North Carolina. And I say that because we've been talking about for a while how North Carolina is probably going to be Trump plus two or so. And I think we still both believe that to be the case, but all these
I don't
pollsters.
know.
Oh,
Have
really?
you seen
I
the
don't
polls?
know.
Have you seen the polls? I don't know. I'm actually getting more into the area where I think I still think Trump's favored in North Carolina, but I'm getting in a position where I'm starting to think that North Carolina could be closer than 2020, so like under a point for Trump, but I don't know. There's a lot of like Harris friendly polling in North Carolina lately, which is like, hmm, makes me
It's
think.
just, it's suspicious, but all right, why don't you take the lead on this Fox polling
Yes.
though?
So our next poll we're looking into is the Fox News poll. Now, the interesting thing about Fox is, obviously that while Fox media is traditionally biased toward Republicans, and that's kind of like a common trope with Fox. A common thing you'll see, their polling is actually pretty good. Like it's pretty reputable polling. They have both a Democratic organization and a Republican organization working together to make their polling, so to ensure accuracy or to try to get as close to accurate as possible. Their poll right now, their national poll shows Trump up 1 point in the popular vote. And if we go to the map, if you want to look at their map of the actual swing states real quick, yeah, we get a really close map hinging on ties in both Michigan and PA. So like essentially saying that they could go either way, and Arizona, Wisconsin, North Carolina each being decided by a single point. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And like we were talking about for Fox, it's a pretty reputable pollster. A lot of this is really interesting because it seems to say that the Rust Belt is going to be more Republican than the Sun Belt. What are your opinions on that?
I mean, I think it's decently possible. I mean, you have a lot of Sun Belt states shifting left. I mean, like namely Arizona, Georgia, Texas. Um, and these Rust Belt areas, you could see them go right. I mean, just an example, like 2012 to 2016, the entire Rust Belt just shot to the right, like immensely fast. Like Iowa, like shifted something like what 10 points between 2012 and 2016. Those are insane shifts. And so I think like it's possible, like, that deterioration, like the Democrats deteriorating the Rust Belt, it's possible that could continue. I mean, we didn't really see that in 2022. So maybe that's an outlier. We didn't see it in 2022 or 2018, but you never know. I mean, maybe that deterioration could continue there, and the Democrats just consolidate on their gains in the Sun Belt. It's a reality that it could happen. This could very well be close to the map.
Yeah, it could be. I think it's a little suspicious. I mean, I think it's gonna probably have the final result's gonna have Arizona to the left of Nevada, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't know about this Rust Belt close. I can't really see Michigan as a toss-up right now. Um, it just doesn't make that much sense to me. I think Pennsylvania is going to be pretty much certain to be to the right of Michigan by 1 or 2 points, if not more. So that's another interesting pair that I would look at right there. Fox is interesting because, like you said, it uses that dual pollster, which, there's some other polling firms that do that. And I think it's a pretty good practice that more people need to be doing.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Oh,
yeah,
and
yeah,
one
go
thing I
on.
want to note that could potentially be interesting is I believe like at one and this could be because I just want to note for this here the polling here the Midwestern polls, I mean the Rust Belt polls rather, because PA is not really too Midwestern, but they were done like immediately after Harris got in the race, so while the Sun Belt states
Ooh, very good
were
point.
done much later, so like they were done in late August, while the other polls were done in late July. But while the Rust Belt polls were done in late July. So I don't know. Maybe that could show a shift, and there could be a shift in that time. Maybe if they repoll them in Western states, Harris might be doing better there. But that was like they did the Midwestern polls like right after the dropout. So
Mm.
I don't know. Maybe it reflects a slightly messed up reality, but
Yeah, that's
it's what we
actually a very
have.
good
It's what we
point.
have.
Very, very good point from you because I would assert that Harris was really bad out the gate, but she seemed to get some polling bump. A lot of right-wing commentators think that this is a honeymoon phase slash response bias, which it could be, but I don't know. You also have some left-leaning commentators just saying, this is the reality, and maybe it's somewhere in between. Maybe it's one or the other. But also, you have to note that Harris has gotten quite a bit of momentum in August, but then seems to have plateaued going into September, even
Yeah.
after the convention. Maybe it was the RFK endorsement, but either way, like the Harris numbers just stayed sort of flat, even sort of went down just a little bit post convention. She didn't really have a convention bump. If anything, she had a convention slump. And now you're going to the debate, which we're going to be releasing this video the day of the debate. So make sure you go watch that. It should be pretty entertaining. But you're going to see a reality where, depending on what is the outcome of tonight's debate, by the time you're watching this, if it's good for Harris, you're going to see another spike of the polling, which is really going to influence things. But if Trump does well or Harris pulls a Biden, then you're going to see Trump practically take over the polling, especially in these even states. And these pollsters are going to show Trump +1 or higher, and Harris is going to be Harris +1 or higher if she does better at the debate. Now, New York Times is the most left-leaning out of the three pollsters we look at here. It also has Harris winning the Electoral College outright, which the other two pollsters don't have that type of strength because they have an even, at least in Pennsylvania, which is very important. And
Hmm.
yeah, so you can see here that Harris is practically sweeping everything except Nevada and Georgia, including North Carolina, which is very astounding. I can't really see North Carolina being this far to the left with Georgia this far to the right. And, you could say this is a trend, with Arizona to the left and Nevada to the right, but then Georgia should also be shifting to the left. And maybe some of these Rust Belt states shouldn't be so heavily in Harris's column because they're like all D+4.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
that really surprised me. Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. In the New York Times poll, yeah, the those Rust Belt states they have Harris winning them all by 4. I kind of doubt that'll be the reality on election day, but that's what they have in their polling. Um, yeah, I do think it is interesting that their polling found North Carolina to the left of Georgia. I mean, it's been like I've seen like a decent amount of poll. I think polling in general as of recent, has shown North Carolina to the left of Georgia, which I find kind of interesting, is because I think that's kind of what happened in 2020, the same sort of thing where um, polls were finding Biden winning North Carolina and Georgia about even. At least that's what I recall. I'm not like I could be remembering this wrong. Um, and it turned out, obviously, Trump won Georgia, won North Carolina on election day, and Biden won Georgia. So I don't know. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just harder to poll Georgia, but I don't know because like in 2022, the Georgia polls were pretty good for the most part, at least for the governor's race. Um, yeah. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I totally see where you're coming from. I think the problem though is, again, that's a midterm election, and we've
Yeah.
been through this before, right? With Trump, and we were talking about 2018. In 2020 we're saying, well, can we really predict the polling error to be that bad in 2020? Because in 2018 it was even off to the right. And then we went into 2020, and obviously Trump blew the expectations out of the water, even though he did lose. He lost in a nail biter, even though most predictions had him losing by a landslide, especially a lot of these quote
Yeah.
unquote high rated pollsters.
Yep.
Which, yeah, so
I think
you're gonna
all of the
see.
three of these pollsters were off. Yeah, in 2020
Yeah,
at
it's
least.
about yeah, that's the point I made at the beginning of this video where I said that, when Trump outperforms the polling, you're going to see pollsters like Rasmussen, Trafalgar, they're going to look great. And that's pretty much what they do, right? They just release a right-leaning number, and then it just in case the mainstream pollsters fail, then they basically get all the appreciation of the right-leaning people and Fox News and get a lot of contracts. And if they fail, oh well, like they just fade into irrelevancy, and that's fine for them because they don't care. They're just trying to get money. And
Yep.
these mainstream pollsters, well, they don't really care about getting things. They try to get things right. They don't really care about money because they have a lot of backing from either a college, which is a lot of money, or a news institution, which has a
Yep.
lot of money because it's not private. And so that means they're going to try their best to get the right number. But if their methodology is flawed, then they're pretty much all screwed together because they all basically it's the same methodology, which is why they have consistent polling misses in one direction or another within the same cycle. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting. You can look at, crosstabs, whatever, to try to see what pollsters will. I actually think the New York Times poll is probably the best out of all of them nationally. It does have Trump +1, but I think looking at things, if I was going to try to unweight some stuff, I'd probably put it at around a neutral to D+1 environment, in my opinion, right now.
Hmm.
Uh, which is interesting if you try to unskew these crosstabs, that is,
Oh yeah.
which maybe
I
you
mean,
shouldn't be doing.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
but what I'm
Yeah,
saying
like
is it's
crosstab fish
also
is always
yeah,
fishy,
it's
but yeah.
also interesting how New York Times and Fox have Trump +1 nationally, but they have him doing worse in the Electoral College than nationally, like
I
in the New York
know,
Times
yeah.
zone, which is so weird. I mean, if Trump loses the Electoral College and wins the popular vote, I mean, first of
That
all,
would be
the
crazy, yeah.
allegations of fraud would be absolutely insane. But secondly, maybe Democrats would finally shut up about the Electoral College, and then Republicans would be the ones trying to get rid of it. It would be very funny.
Yeah.
That's
I
for
mean,
sure.
I see like I just a point on that is yeah, like I think an argument for that happening, like I mean, in the unlikely scenario that Trump like the New York Times poll suggests, because New York Times right now nationally has Trump +1, but Harris winning like in the swing states. One argument for that happening is kind of what we saw in 2022 with Republicans doing extremely well, not outright winning, but doing really well relatively in blue states like New York, California. They did really well in Virginia. They did. I mean, Florida's not a blue state, obviously, it's a red state, but they did really well in Florida too. Like doing really well in these states that aren't swing states is great for getting, an advantage in the popular vote. You get lots of votes from that. If yeah, like there's some polls that suggest that New York could swing as much as 10 points to the right. That gets you a lot of votes. That gets you millions of votes, in fact. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's still New York. And if it's going from 20 points for Kamala to 10 points for Kamala, I mean, she's still winning the state at the end of the day.
Exactly. And that will affect things like you said, California, New York, Florida. And not only that, I mean, it's also going to help you in down ballot races, right? In races like the House and state legislatures, that's really going to help you when the top line does win. It is important, but when it comes to
Yeah.
the presidential level, you need to be honing in on these swing states, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens because actually, I don't have the betting markets up, but you will see that Trump didn't advance much in the betting markets the past few days. He went up a few percent, just based off of vibes on how Harris seems to
Hmm.
be plateauing, right? And probably people are a little more bullish for Trump on this debate just because of how the first one went. But when it comes to the popular vote betting market, Trump has actually closed the gap by around 15% even, because Harris was absolutely winning that by a landslide. Now it's looking closer. I think last time I checked, Poly Market was around 30% for Trump, and before that it was like 25 or maybe. It looks like he's shot up on the popular vote. So it's actually really interesting to see what's going to happen here, probably just based off of this Siena poll. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's this video for you guys. These are the three mainstream pollsters with all the swing states and their national top lines. We're also going to be probably going into Trafalgar at some point or some right leaning. We'll be examining the right leaning pollsters like Rasmussen as well. But stay tuned because we're probably going to drop a video on the debate tomorrow, question mark, as soon as possible after as that we can after this
Yep.
debate, because if it's anything like the first one, we're going to be covering it instantly. If it's extremely boring, we might wait a day, because if it's extremely
We'll see. We'll
boring,
see.
yeah, it probably won't be, because it's Trump versus Harris. Anyways, leave a like on this video down below. Comment down below what you think of these pollsters. I mean, do you think they're good? Do you think they're off? If you think they're off, which way do you think they're off? There's actually some people think they're still off to the right from 2022. And subscribe to this channel and ring that bell, because we're going to be releasing a video on the debate hopefully tomorrow as soon as possible, and you don't want to miss that. We'll be giving our juicy bipartisan analysis on who won.
Yep.
Last time we agreed, this time we might not agree, right? So catch that debate, our debate after the debate. And yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. Share this video with your friends and family.
See you guys.